Good morning. Welcome to the Affordable Housing Advisory Board. As we get started, I'll call the meeting to order, and we'll all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Well, this is going to be a fun week. We've got a lot of things going on in the affordable housing area. To get the meeting started, I'd like to welcome everyone that's here. Mayor Lott is on his way, so he'll be here shortly. We do have a few folks that have called in and indicated that they were unable to attend today, but while we're here, and those that are here on the board, please let's introduce everyone since the board has been recently reorganized. Would you like to start?
I'm Elizabeth Strom.
Good morning, Sarah Combs, University Area CDC.
Good morning, Sherry Donahue, City of Temple Terrace.
Orlando Good, City of Tampa.
Mark Rosenwasser.
Kimberly Overman, Board of County Commission.
Cheryl Howell, Affordable Housing, Hillsborough County.
Nancy Takamori with the County Attorney's Office.
Cody Powell, Planning Commission.
Good morning, my name is Christine Nieves.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Nancy, do we have a quorum?
Yes, you do, Commissioner.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Let's get started with public comment. We only currently have one person signed up, Sean Wilson. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. Sean Wilson, Blue Sky Communities, 5300 West Cypress Street. I wanted to give a little update on what's happening in Tallahassee right now that relates to Hillsborough County. There was a 9% tax credit round in the fall. There was also a sale / 4% tax credit round in the fall. The sale is the state's part of the Sadowski funding that doesn't come to the county in the form of SHIP. In the 9% round, there were 2 applications. One was 200 units in Brandon, new construction. The other one, which is 102 units, is in East Tampa. That's also new construction. That's geared towards elderly. It looks right now like the East Tampa application is going to get approved. In the sale / 4%, there were 4 applications. Uptown Sky and UACDC, or Blue Sky and UACDC submitted Uptown Sky, which is on Fletcher. Southport submitted one that was in Brandon. THA submitted one that was in West River. And the same Brandon one that submitted the 9% application, they sort of reconstituted their project and made it 230 units. And they also submitted, that's in Brandon. And it looks like that's the one that's going to get funded. And that one is going to skew a little bit more towards slightly higher AMI than the one in East Tampa. So if that all plays out, that would be 102 plus 230. That would be 332 new units of rental housing, tax credit housing, that would start construction at some point next year. If it's not the 102 and the 230, it'll be some other combination of those 6 applications. 2 will get funded. On the session side of things, as you know, I'm the chairman of the Coalition of Affordable Housing Providers, and the governor came out for full funding of Sadowski. That's $387 million. The Senate came out for full funding. That's $387 million. The House came out with a 62% sweep, so like $150 million. So they would sweep roughly $200 million. So the biggest bang for our buck that we can get is calling our local Republican state House members. That is the key constituency for any outreach calls that any member of the public does. Doesn't matter which one it is, Republican and House member. That's the category of people that we want to convince. And we know that would make an enormous difference in the amount of SHIP funds. So that's my update on what's happening in Tallahassee and related to tax credits. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean.
And thank you for your service on the coalition. That's very, very helpful. It takes both sides to make this work, both on the government and the private enterprise, and I appreciate your time, sir. Thank you very much. Next, I would like to approve the minutes. We have minutes for December 2nd, January 13th, and January 16th. So we can do them all together, or unless there's comments, any comments with any of the minutes that you have in your backup? Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion approved.
Okay, motion approved and seconded by Cody Powell. Excellent. Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay, we have a lot going on in this world. The subcommittee for the foreclosure and subordination policy met recently. We met on January 16th and had a great discussion. We talked about how it impacts our bylaws and what we should do in terms of affordable housing policy. We have additional questions and work to be done there, so we have rescheduled another meeting, which anyone can attend, anyone on the board that can attend, for Thursday, February 13th at 3 p.m. here at the County Center on the 26th floor, Conference Room A. So if you have the time and would like to attend, and those of you on the committee, please put that on your calendar so that we have a robust discussion. This work is sticky. We have to make sure that these policies work in maintaining and preserving units, but also at the same time make sure that the quality of the housing available to those that live in affordable housing is maintained. So this is an important discussion regarding the loan policies that we put forward. So that comes up very soon. Additionally, the next item is our bylaws. In your packet, you have the revisions to the bylaws. We were able to, with Nancy Takamori's assistance, our attorney, updated the bylaws to reflect the new membership of the board and the reorganization of the Affordable Housing Board to make sure that we have stakeholders at the table as well as electeds at the table to be able to reinforce our commitment towards affordable housing. You'll see that the new language is highlighted in yellow, and we also updated the composition in line with Resolution R19-118 that was passed on September 18, 2019, that modifies the Affordable Housing Advisory membership, clarifies the absenteeism policy, and adds new duties pursuant to the Affordable Housing Act. So I don't want to leave hope out of this, the HOPE Affordable Housing Act. So I appreciate everyone working on this, staff and subcommittee works on the bylaws, and would entertain a motion to approve the Affordable Housing Advisory Board bylaws as submitted, unless there's comment or discussion.
Make a motion to approve it.
Motion to approve by Mark?
Second?
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. Motion carried. I love it when a meeting moves smoothly. We might actually get out of here before noon today. Additionally, at the last meeting, there was robust conversation regarding our affordable housing biennial plan update. And that was interesting. Cheryl, do you want to cover that since I probably have more to say?
Absolutely. I just want to say, first of all, thank you. Thank you to everybody who came out, who advocated, who agitated, who helped to move forward this conversation about affordable housing and the needs of our most vulnerable in the community. The Board of County Commissioners last week did approve the HOPE Biennial Plan in its original state that it came to the board. We have 10% set aside for workforce-type housing. Over 85% of the funds will be used for low and very low median family incomes, and we are so very, very proud of that. We worked on behalf of ensuring inclusivity by all parties. Not everybody got everything that they wanted, but I can say that a considerable amount of work has been done, and so I'm thinking that as we move forward in this plan and we begin to take on projects, I want to say that I think that everybody involved is really going to be surprised at the outcome in the numbers. You know, this is seed money. When we're talking about developing affordable housing, we have a couple of developers in here right now, and they know that the development of new affordable housing is very, very expensive. So a 100-unit apartment complex may cost $25 million. And so we're using this money as gap money. So we're encouraging or utilizing a process that would really support the leveraging of funding from all the other resources. So I just want to say thank you to this AHAB board. Some members started and they've gone, they started this process and they're no longer a part of the AHAB committee. But I want to say I appreciate their support. I appreciate the kind of, I want to say, just the commitment, the passion, just continue to show up each and every time and not allowing this to fall off the radar. And thank you to our commissioner for speaking up and standing up for the people that's most vulnerable here in Hillsborough County. We got UACDC, we got USF, we have so many, we got Temple Terrace, we got the city of Tampa here, and I think we can really make a difference. We got the rental community in the room, and we really, really need you guys. We got home buyers, we got Habitat for Humanity, we got special needs providers in this room. And of course, as always, we have hope, and we're very, very grateful for hope and what you guys have done as well. So I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, our affordable housing advocates have been some of our best warriors and have shined a bright light on the importance of prioritizing affordable housing for our very low-income citizens. And I'm excited about the biennial plan that was approved on February 5th. I've included in your packet a memo from Ron Barton, who's the Assistant County Administrator, or Economic Prosperity gentleman, and he provided county staff's recommendation on the Hillsborough County Local Affordable Housing Biennial Fund after analyzing the board's recommendations on December 2nd to allocate 40% to the very low income. The Affordable Housing Services Department made a concerted effort to focus the funding in the lower income categories by committing 55.5% to the incomes at below 80% of AMI, and an additional 30% to incomes at or below 50%, and only allowing 10% to be used at incomes at or below 100% of AMI. Mr. Barton advised the BOCC through his letter to the board, right there, sir. Yep. Which allows the Affordable Housing Services some flexibility to use a small portion of the HOPE funds for incomes at or below 100% of AMI, recognizing that the proposed plan already allows for more restrictive allocations of funds to the low and very low income families. I have also heard from our valued affordable housing industry professionals and their concerns regarding recommended strategies, and feel that those concerns have and will be addressed by staff. I want to say, and I want to thank staff and our industry professionals, advocates and citizens who contacted my office, and trust me, my phone's been ringing off the hook and the calendar pretty full, to discuss the plan and offer their insights. And it takes a village to put together this kind of commitment towards affordable housing. And I'm very proud of all of you that have worked so hard to get this money to work and address our affordable housing crisis. Finally, I'd like to note that it's my understanding that this plan can always be revisited if the first reiteration misses the mark and goals in any way. So in that scenario, AHAB would be again entitled to review the biennial plan. What's great about the way we've looked at it is that we've shown in the plan where our opportunities for getting it right can occur. There's many areas of the focus in the plan that used in combination can greater serve our citizens. We broke it up into various different areas, but those are targets. We're going to look for the biggest bang for our buck to make sure that where we are leveraging these resources, we get the most and serve the most of the citizens that we can really help and make a difference. Homelessness is being addressed by the great efforts of Tampa Hillsborough Homeless Initiative. And in partnership with them, we can help move more people into secure housing. And they are a great partner with us. We don't provide homeless services in the same way that they do, but we complement making sure that we can get folks into a place where families are safe, our children are safe, and where our communities can grow. Affordable housing is an economics issue. We have to make sure that people have an opportunity to thrive and take care of their families. And our efforts and focus in affordable housing and my efforts in actually marrying affordable housing with our transit resources gives our families the greatest opportunity for success. And that's what's in our plan. So I look forward to working with all of you and getting this done. We've got plenty of work to do. And I just want to say again, thank you to all of you that have stepped to the plate, offered us advice on how to move forward, and remain committed to making sure affordable housing is available in our county. So thank you very, very much. Any other comments? Anyone like to add? Okay, great. Well, I appreciate the work that you've done. Legislative update. I will tell you, we have been busy. I have gone up. I unfortunately was not able to go up the second time because I shared the flu with my grandson. Or we shared it, trust me. But I was able to go up for Hillsborough Day with my new legislative aide, Lisa Monteleone. A past city councilwoman has joined my office, and we are ramped up to be able to address not only land use, transportation issues, given her experience working on the MPO or as a member of the MPO, as well as her knowledge and experience working with the city, as well as in land use and affordable housing issues. So between my aide, Lucas Martinez Jr., who's back here somewhere, and Lisa Monteleone, we're ready for bear. So we're going to get it done. The county staff has just been excellent in helping us get ready. I was able to meet with 15 legislators to discuss affordable housing legislative priorities, not only in the area of affordable housing, but also in the area of transit, human trafficking, as well as our juvenile justice and children welfare issues, to make sure that our dire need for affordable housing funding was heard by the legislators, not only those that are working on the bills to protect the Sadowski Trust and make sure more resources are available in affordable housing, but also with those that weren't on those committees, weren't sponsoring bills, but have a vote in the House and the Senate. Although we had positive discussions, there's still some distressing developments in the lower chamber's proposed fiscal 2021 budget, as we heard earlier from Mr. Wilson's comments. The Senate and DeSantis seek to fully fund Sadowski at the $387 million, including $267 million for the State House Initiatives, or the SHIP program, and $120 million for the Affordable Housing Apartments program. However, the House, once again, as we heard earlier, continues to sweep and looks to shift $240 million to use elsewhere, earmarking $147 million for affordable housing programs, $73 million for SHIP, $48 million for affordable housing apartments, and $20 25 million for affordable housing in hurricane-damaged counties. I plead with all of you and all of those listening and watching to contact all of the House of Representatives to share your advocacy of the importance of investing in our housing stock for those that want a safe place to live. It is critically important that we fully fund the Sadowski Trust. Hillsborough County is economically dependent on that. Our economic competitiveness depends on available affordable housing for not only the low and very low, but also for our workforce. Our focus will be on those that have the least amount available. But without Sadowski funds, we aren't able to adequately fund workforce housing. And it's critically important that we need our legislators' assistance on this. So I implore you to make some phone calls this week. They are working in the appropriation committees right now, and it's critically important. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of who I actually met with so that you know who I've spoken to, so you can emphasize that. And then if you wish to call everybody else, please do. I met with Senator Lauren Book, Representative Sprouse, Representative Lawrence McClure, Representative Mike Beltram, through the House Speaker Oliva's office, through his aide, Corey Dowd, Senator Hudson, who's been our champion. I met with Senator Roussan, Representative Fentress Driscoll. I met with Representative Trumbull's office, met with Senator Lee. I got a chance to, not with a representative, but I got a chance to hang out with Mariah Hayden, the executive director with New Life Village, and what they're doing in the area of affordable housing. I also got a chance to meet with the Senate President Galvano and Representative Brandis when I returned. I also had appointments and did get one of our county staff members, Dr. Heather Curry, was up there dealing and advocating on behalf of juvenile justice, but she's been working with me on human trafficking, so I co-opted her time when she was able to go and I was unable to go to meet with Representative Clovis Watson Jr., who's a great advocate for us in affordable housing, Representative Killebrew, Senator Jason Pizzo, who has a great interest in the work we're doing here, and Representative Wengay Newton, our delegate president. So there were many more that I tried to get in to see. That if you want to give Senator Annette Taddeo a call, she'd be interested in hearing from us, and many others. So please, please make these phone calls. We definitely need to make sure that we protect the Sadowski Trust. You know, if we were able to be fully funded, we would have at least twice what we have to work with. I'm very proud of the Board of County Commission that has made a commitment towards funding at the county level. But it's pretty sad that we don't have what we need and what our allocation should be from the state. So your phone calls are critically important. Please make those phone calls. And if you happen to go to Tallahassee for some reason, knock on those doors to make sure that they know how critically important it is to our safety of our citizens, our emergency preparedness in terms of shoring up housing that's vulnerable to damage in a storm, as well as making sure that we are able to provide and keep our competitiveness in this economic environment. People are still moving here. We need to make sure they have a place to live. Councilman Donahue.
Thank you. Last year, there was discussion that they were borrowing from the fund because of hurricane damage. Was there any talk of repaying the fund now that the FEMA dollars seem to be beginning to make their way down to us?
I
Or is
so
that one of
wish
those
that were
ideas?
true. And actually, I've talked to several representatives about that concept. However, that is not the case. When those monies come back to the state to repay the monies that were used out of the Sadowski Trust to restore hurricane-damaged housing stock, it does not come back to the Sadowski Trust. It goes back into general revenues. I've actually met with several representatives with the idea of coming up with some way that either that strategy is put into place so that we can immediately respond. I mean, the state has a rainy day fund, if they call it. And the state's very proud of fully funding that to make sure that our credit rating is not put at risk. However, I believe there's an opportunity to negotiate with FEMA at the state level, as well as with the federal government, to immediately be able to respond to disaster impacted communities where housing is at risk, and not have to wait till budget season to sweep the Sadowski Fund to restore the housing stock that is damaged as a consequence of a storm. That is completely inefficient, because by the time that happens, unless the storm happens a week before budget season, those communities lie at waste, waiting for the Sadowski funds to address our disaster response when it comes to housing, when a hurricane or other natural disaster occurs in a community. So we do need to come up with another strategy. I did start that conversation with Representative Lawrence McClure, who's on budget and budget appropriations. I think we can explore better ways and other ways to be able to address the fact that we have communities at risk to sea level rise and climate change, as well as other economic impacts. And so we do need to continue that conversation, but currently that is not the case, unfortunately. And so I would like to continue that as things we talk about, ways that we can reach out to our legislators and to our state CFO and other individuals to make sure that we're being responsible in how we respond to those kinds of disasters. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
One question. When the Sadowski Fund is rated, obviously, when money's borrowed from it, I should say. Clearly, there's a legislative document that says exactly what is being done. Does that document include a repayment plan so that it's very clear from the time the money is taken as to how that money will be repaid? And if not, is that possible?
Not to my knowledge. It's my understanding that it is not a loan. It's a sweep.
It's swept.
It's just swept.
Right.
Yeah, it's not a loan from the trust. It is allocated to take care of our disaster response, which is not what the Sadowski Trust was designed to do. And that's where these kinds of conversations need to occur. There is the premise that, we're going to use it for that because it'll come back. And it doesn't. By law, it does not come back to the trust. Goes back to the general fund if it is considered to take care of emergency response, and FEMA would come back and actually have the money come back to the state. Unfortunately, it does not come back to the Sadowski Trust. So if we do have language that we can recommend to address that, that is something we can consider. The other option is to look at the resources that are specifically designed to take care of disaster recovery, our quote-unquote rainy day fund, and make sure those provisions provide for the housing loss that does occur and economically hurts communities. Mayor Lott.
Thank you. Sorry, it's a few minutes late this morning. I-4 was backed up quite bad, but we got here. I'm glad you brought up the relationship building, okay, because as everything is, it's building trust and confidence with those that, you work side by side and everything. And I think something that we're very fortunate is that State Representative Lawrence McClure, he's in line to be the appropriations chair in a few years. Mm-hmm. So that as long as everything stays, in accordance with how it's set up right now, we have the opportunity to have literally the one that's responsible for those budgetary items right here from Hillsborough County, that we should be able to think large, okay, and have some opportunity for some projects that could definitely move Hillsborough County forward. So I think it's wonderful that you already reached out to them in accordance to this, but I think it behooves all of us in this board. I would think we'd want to build a really tight relationship with State Representative Lawrence McClure because, he'll be chairing that, and obviously, we know whoever chairs that typically has a lot of influence in those discussions. So we're only a couple of years out from that,
I've enjoyed a good dialogue
Yeah.
with Representative McClure. He gets it, he understands, and as you pointed out, he's positioned to help us in the future. So I encourage you to reach out and make sure that we have an active and robust discussion about this particular issue, because he seemed very interested in starting that conversation. So I'm looking forward to that
Yeah, he's
dialogue.
very, very open to making sure that you look at the total view of the needs of the county and the state, not just a narrow view. So I think we're very fortunate to have that individual, because, everything takes money, so he's going to be the one in line to be the appropriations chair, so he could, whatever financial needs we have, at least we have a voice and a relationship to be able to express that with, So
Yeah,
I'm glad you reached out with him.
Absolutely, absolutely. Councilwoman Donahue?
Is he committed to preserving Sandusky, or does he need convincing?
I got the impression he's committed. I don't want to speak for
So
him.
that's okay. I mean, there's a way to talk to him if you think you're encouraging him to hang in there with us, and then there's a way to convince him. So before I approach,
Yeah.
kind of, if you have an idea as to my approach, that would be helpful.
I got the impression that he understands the damage of not allowing Sadowski to work the way it's supposed to. I got the impression that he recognized the value of fully funding Sadowski. So I think we just need to really encourage him to fight for us, and then give him opportunities to find other ways to not have it happen. So, which is why I started that conversation with him. Connie?
Yes. I'll be going to Tallahassee Tuesday with about 800 impacted residents. And so if I can get a copy of that tour guide list of people we should knock at their doors, I would appreciate it.
Excellent. I'll have Lisa reach out to you to give you a list of folks to visit. That's excellent. Good news. Awesome. Chrissy?
I wanted to share something I thought might be relevant. I was just in Tallahassee.
pull that down a little
Sure.
bit?
I was just in Tallahassee last week for Great American Realtor Days, and it was actually the 50th anniversary. And what that is members of the Realtor Party, which is a nonpartisan group that goes to advocate for property rights, affordable housing. We talked about the environment, clean water, and we went to as many representatives and as many senators as we could to reiterate these 4 points, and affordable housing was at the top of the list. And each one of them at the end, we asked, what is it that we can do for you? And all of them said, show up, call, write, and tell us what's important to you, because people think that they can't. And it was amazing how open they were to meeting with us and to listening and to really making sure that they heard us, and they all seemed to support what we were there for once they heard the data.
Right. And that's, I will say, and this is something I've noticed since I've gotten here, which has not been forever, but as a legislator or as an elected, you can get kind of isolated. The people around you that are at your door every day, but it's sometimes you don't always hear both sides. Sometimes you hear from one side all the time. Sometimes you don't hear what you need to hear to really make a difference. And I would say that a majority of the people that run for office, are there because they want to make a difference. So your phone call matters. Your vote matters. Your phone call matters. So don't hesitate to pick up the phone and call them. Don't hesitate to send an email. And if you have an opportunity, Ms. Burton, thank you so much for going. And all of you that have had time to go, it matters. It really does matter. They appreciate having an opportunity to hear a different perspective so that they can deliberate and make decisions that make sense for our state and for our local communities. So thank you. Anyone else? I just had one more item to bring up, and then we can move on. Okay, well, in an effort to reorganize this Affordable Housing Advisory Board, one of the goals was to develop a strong, cohesive, collaborative relationship with all of our stakeholders. So I'm very thankful that you're here, Mayor Lott. I'm very thankful you're here. Councilman Goods, as well as Councilwoman Donahue, where we have, electeds and those individuals that are making policy in our community to work together. In light of that, we've been looking to develop a good relationship with the City of Tampa and the City of Tampa's Housing Department. Cheryl's been working very closely with Vanessa McCleary. And on Wednesday at 10 a.m., here at the County Center, I think, I'm not really sure, I've got to figure out where it's going to be. Where is it going to be?
West River.
West River? Where on the West River? Where? Well, anyway, I'll give you the location in a second. Mayor Castor and I are doing a press conference on our commitment for affordable housing. I think it's critically important that I've been reviewing the city's plan, and we're looking at, obviously we just pressed our plan, the West River redevelopment site. Where is that?
I want to say
West
it's,
River, Maine?
That's what I was thinking. It's West River in Maine? Okay.
Might be around the old Mary Bethune high-rise, somewhere in that area where the new buildings are coming out of the ground.
I think that is exactly where it is, yeah. So if you'd like to join us, 10 a.m. On Wednesday, February 12th, coming up this week, where the mayor and I will make the commitment to work together to address this as best we can, where we can collaborate and make the most out of all the resources that we're committing to, and what the mayor is committing towards affordable housing as well. So I'm excited to see the work we've started here is starting to make a real difference for our community, and encourage you, if you can attend, if not, you'll probably see it in a variety of different places online. So thank you very, very much. Director's report.
Hi, Cheryl Howell, Affordable Housing Director. And I want to just take a moment to talk about our community partner highlight. This is an agency that has a tremendous impact in our community. They provide for one of the most vulnerable populations in the community. They are not doing $25 million projects or $50 million projects, but they are changing lives in such a way that it's pretty incredible. So if you can imagine for a moment not being able to use your stove, or not being able to go into rooms of your home because your wheelchair can't fit in there anymore, or not being able to figure out where your lights are, or not being able to reach your actual light switches, Self-Reliance comes in and they make these changes in the homes of the people that are so vulnerable in our community. Many of them have worked all their lives, and they just need a little bit of help right now. And so I want Self-Reliance to come up, talk about some of the services they're providing to our residents. They have contracted with Hillsborough County Affordable Housing for years, and they are one of our best partners. So without further ado, please come on up.
Good morning, and thank you very much, Ms. Howell, for your kind remarks. My name is Finn Cavanaugh. I am the Executive Director of Self-Reliance. We are a private nonprofit corporation that operates in Hillsborough County, and we are really what's called a center for independent living that promotes the interest of people with disabilities of all kinds to live as independently as they possibly can. Self-Reliance is, and I'm passing out some information about Self-Reliance. Our mission is to promote independence among people with disabilities, and to improve the larger community that we all live in that regard. We've been serving Hillsborough County for more than 40 years, fairly quietly. Ms. Howell mentioned that we're not doing $25 million projects, but we're open to that prospect.
A surprise.
You never let an opportunity pass. We are governed by a voluntary board of directors, more than half of whom are people with disabilities themselves, so they keep us true to our mission. What we really do, and there's a list of our core services, we really kind of get in the trenches with the people that we work with. Again, these are people with all kinds of disabilities. We don't limit our services based on type of disability or anything like that. But we really get in the trenches with them, go to their homes, and learn what they need. And so when you talk about the services we provide a lot of different things that aren't in our brochure. We are very proud to be the special needs partner to the county and funded in large measure by SHIP, and before that, CDBG funding and things of that nature. We have done, in partnership with the county, by my count, since 2007, about 52 projects in partnership with the county. We have a squeaky clean monitoring history. We play by the rules. We believe those rules are in place for a good reason, and so we honor them. We do not do construction work per se ourselves, but what we do is manage a network of expert contractors in our home modifications and barrier removal program to go into homes using that SHIP funding and modify those homes to help people overcome the barriers in the physical confines of their environment. So what does that look like? Sometimes it's a ramp to get into somebody's home. Sometimes it is widening doors so a wheelchair can get through. Sometimes it's redesigning a bathroom so that someone can have a roll-in shower instead of a tub that's quite honestly very dangerous to them. And these things are seemingly somewhat small, but they're game changers for the people that we work with. And that's always the reminder to me, is that, a lot of times when I'm speaking to our consumers, I forget that they got up at 3 o'clock this morning just to get ready for the day. And so all of these physical changes to their home environment make a very big difference in their life, their ability to live independently, oftentimes their ability to work, their ability to contribute to the community, and their ability to have relationships in that community. We obviously go through a very comprehensive screening process with everybody we serve. This is intended to serve low-income people with disabilities here in our county. So we go through a very, very comprehensive process in that regard. We typically have a waiting list for the services that we provide. SHIP is not the only funding that we're fortunate to enjoy. We have several other programs that fund this similar program, but SHIP has been, quite honestly, the most reliable source of funding over the years in our partnership with the county. So that's been important. One of the points I want to make to you here today is that we are not only enjoying the funding from the county, from the SHIP program, but we bring several things to the table on behalf of the people that we serve, in addition, that are not funded by Hillsborough County. One is that expertise in working with people with disabilities, and the expertise of our partners in working with people with disabilities. It's complicated. Getting into these conversations, their lives are complicated beyond my imagination. And so we get involved with those people at a human level. The other thing that we do is we engage them in a broader range of services when they become our consumer for the home modification program. So sometimes we can help them get equipment that, let's say, Medicaid doesn't pay for. We can help them get access to peer support groups that we operate out of our service center, which is at Armenia and Bush, by the way. And we establish relationships with these people that continue into the future, which is extremely important. But at the end of the day, the most important part of what we do is that we start a relationship with these people that's bigger than just that project. And I got to say, I wish I could take credit for that, but really the heart of that is our program manager, Betty Nieves Velasquez, who goes into these projects with eyes open, not just for the needs and qualifications of the SHIP program, but for these people's overall health and well-being. And I got to tell you, I hear lots of stories and meet with lots of consumers that we serve with disabilities. Betty's are the toughest, because the people and the families that we're talking about are suffering a level of sort of cumulative stress in their life that is unimaginable to me. And so Betty goes in there, sits down, and hears all of this. And rather than just this being about replacing somebody's bathtub or a ramp, we try to engage them on a broader level. And that's a very human process, and we're fortunate to have an exceptional human who does that. So that concludes my remarks. I shared copies of that with you. We are grateful to enjoy the partnership that we do with Hillsborough County. I will be going to Tallahassee Wednesday to sharpen up my elbows and soften up my tone, and hoping to influence some of those conversations you mentioned earlier.
Thank you, Mr. Kavanaugh.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we'll make sure you're well loaded. Okay. I want to share with you. In 2001, my son was in a catastrophic brain injury, and when you have a young adult go through that kind of trauma, even though they're an adult, they're still your kid.
Yeah.
You know. And any family that is making the transition from a person who is fully functioning to no longer able to fully function independently, you recognize the volume, as you describe, of trauma that occurs in that family's life. Your whole life is upside down. And, you know, anybody that steps to the place, I can't thank you enough for the work that you do, because anybody that suddenly shows up to say, hi, I can help you, you're just hugely grateful. But you're also going, all at the same time. So the fact that you're addressing, financial management skills, that you're dealing with transportation access skills, employability skills, how do you get back on track when your life has been completely derailed, dealing with healthcare management, all of those things are such a blessing to a family that has an opportunity to learn about what you do and to take advantage of those that level of service that you have available to our families. Without that, families, collapse, and their ability to take care of themselves collapse. So bringing that safety net to families in Hillsborough County is such a gift, and thank you very much for the work that you do.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And
Thank you.
Ms. Hill.
Any other questions or?
Great report. That was awesome.
Wonderful. The reason why we do the community partner highlight is so that this board will get an up-close look at the people that you're impacting. The decisions that you make on this board impact the lives of people in a very real way, so.
It's also nice to celebrate our partners that do such a great job.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we had a number of different items, as we always do, going to the Board of County Commissioners. Needless to say, the biggest item on my list was the approval of the biennial plan, and so I've already kind of given up my thank yous on that, but thank you once again. We also had some other items. We had budget amendments to realign funding for CDBG. Those projects are always moving. We had a land use restriction termination agreement that went through as well, and as much as we like to keep our apartments online, sometimes it's just simply not an option for us to keep them online, but preservation is key for us as well. And so with that, I want to say those are all of our agenda items. We have been busy in our monitoring and compliance, and we are on target. We have over 60, what I want to call live projects. And Michelle Boone heads that up from our compliance section. And I think we got time today. We can hear from Michelle. Come on up, please.
Good morning. Again, I'm Michelle Boone with the Affordable Housing Services Office. I'm the Monitoring and Compliance Manager. Cheryl mentioned, we do have 60 open projects right now of all different types, public facilities, public service projects.
Can you get the mic a little closer?
Owner-occupied rehab, I'm sorry. So we do monitor those ongoing throughout the project. We do have over 50 multifamily properties that we do monitor on an annual basis. We're doing desk audits on all of those. She did mention that we did have one land use restriction release. That doesn't mean that those properties are no longer affordable. That just means our money that we had back in the 90s or whenever those agreements took place, that our funds have expired or their commitment to our funds have expired. That doesn't mean they don't have other sources of funds to keep those units affordable for the next 10, 15, 20 years. So unfortunately, we will see more of those as we did fund quite a few projects in the 90s. But again, those units will still remain affordable, and we still have connections with them to make sure that they are affordable and rent restrictions and those type of things are taken care of. So if you have any questions.
I was actually going to ask that. How does that happen? How do you ensure that once it does become due, the land use restriction, how does that work? Because I see there's 172 units, the Carlisle Lakes apartment in the university area, that I'm thinking, okay, since they're not required to make those affordable.
They're not required.
Are they going to bump those up to market rate?
It depends on, this particular property was sold to a different entity.
Okay.
Again, we have really no control over who it's sold to once our restrictions are over, but they may have other sources of funds that keep them affordable.
Okay, and so it's basically up to them, right? They can.
It is
they
up to
want.
them. So sometimes when there's an opportunity to come in and put some preservation dollars in there, certainly we want to do that so that we can extend and expand affordability. But sometimes the opportunity is simply not there for various different reasons.
Okay. Do we know what they're going to do, their plans are by chance? No?
You want to offer some guidance here?
I managed that property.
Perfect.
For the previous owners. And it started out as a nightmare because before those owners, it was owned by a Chinese national who did nothing but take money out of the property and not reinvest a dime of it back in. So people weren't getting paid, electric was turned off, it was a mess. The new owners requested the termination of a formal termination. It actually had terminated, I believe it was the end of last year. It had been in effect for quite a while. And there are two phases to this property, one much older than the other. It's my understanding that the new owners, who I have not met, we are not managing the property for them, they have their own management team. They are going to continue the process that we started to make the residences, improve the quality of the residences. Yes, property is in a very difficult location. It's probably in the middle of nowhere in the area known as Suitcase City. I mean, it's 15th and 127th, if I remember correctly. There's a lot of negative activity around the area, and we've worked with some of the other owners in that area as well. But it's my understanding that they want to improve, and they're starting with little things. From what I understand, there's a number of children in the community, and there's a school bus stop right in front. These children it's not lit very well. They're going to be putting in benches, increased lighting for the children. They're going to be doing a number of things to improve the property.
Thank you. I appreciate that. When I hear improve, that worries me because we've had a lot of improvements happening in the university area, and that improvement looks like kicking all the renters out and making improvements and then jacking the rates up to market rate. So we just need to keep thinking about, and I know, Cheryl, you've been talking about it a lot. How do we keep the stock that we have and we continue to lose it as these dates hit? So I'd just like to, if there's innovative solutions or ideas on zoning or requirements or anything, because I just hate to think that we'd lose 172 units in that community that desperately needs it. So I don't have the answers, but certainly like for us just to think about that stuff.
Yeah, and certainly we are thinking about it because preservation is key for us as well. But I just want to take us back a moment to most of these properties were funded in the early 90s. For housers like myself, those were the good old days. Mm-hmm. And so there was plenty of funding that was coming in, and so we didn't anticipate the day when they would actually sweep the Sadowski funds to do other things with it. And so then there was this natural attrition that would kind of occur, right? And so it didn't really quite work out the way we had anticipated for a number of different reasons. The housing crisis probably being one of them. The other is the rating of the funds for more than a decade. More than a decade, that's a very long time. And so, preservation is one of those things that we absolutely must do. And so there are other funding mechanisms out there that can support the gap funding that we have with preservations, but the will of the owners has to be present as well, and so it's a good thing when people want to come, and then it's a bad thing when people want to come. Yeah.
Somebody else have a comment?
Mayor Lott.
Mayor Lott? No.
Oh, no.
Okay.
And there lies some of the challenges. Many of the projects that we fund have a timeline. So as a policy and how we approach and utilize the funds that the county has made as a commitment, and how we manage those funds that we do get from the Sadowski Trust when we get the little bit that we get or more that we get, it becomes important that we sort of look at where is that property, what's the best opportunity. Part of the reason we're working with the Florida Housing Coalition with Cody Glazer and their legal team is to look at programs that actually allow for affordability for perpetuity, rather than just for the 20 or the 30 years that much of our arrangements permit. So if it's in an area that long-standing policy would suggest that area should be maintained and sustained as affordable, we need to look at how we recommend to the cities and the counties in their zoning and land use that promote that affordability factor, where we're investing not only affordable housing, but transit resources that help families function in a more competitive and economically sustainable way. We look at ways that those deals are structured in such a way that the affordability factor extends well beyond their 20 or 30 years, because it's amazing how fast that time goes by. Trust me, right now I'm beginning to realize it quite well. So I think, we can be very proud of the fact that we have 69 properties or $78 million worth of housing available, or that we've funded over time. But we do have to take a look at that calendar, and that's something that staff and I are looking at. Where do we have properties where those contracts are expiring? What are we losing in that process? And then possibly speaking with the owners prior to having it sold and saying, how do we go about working with you to maintain this housing if it's in a place that makes total sense to keep that affordability available to the residents that live there and allow those communities to stay intact. So a lot of the conversations we're going to be having over the next year is how do we recommend policy that can do that. And one thing that in concert with your report, which I really appreciate that is brought to my awareness, the Board of County Commission right now has had a series of workshops since November or December addressing how we grow how we build a sustainable community and how we addressed our financial responsibilities in the best way. What land use policies do we need to put into place? What growth strategies do we consider? So if you have, nothing else to do, those workshops are online. We've had really effective and good dialogue. I have to give our board a lot of credit. There's been a lot of discussion of things that we haven't discussed in the past that is coming forward to make sure that we grow in a way that really creates a sustainable, healthy community, as so many people are moving here and our population estimates rise at a rate that we're going, oh my God, how are we going to do this? But the good news is those are good conversations. So to gain some perspective of the things that the boards are considering, the Board of County Commission is considering as it pertains to land use and growth management, please take a look at those workshops to help us frame these conversations, because I think it will give us some good ideas of things that we need to recommend, not only in funding reasons, but also with all of our partners, the health department, all of our partners that are achieving and serving our community. Connie?
I just wanted to kind of like echo some of the concern about, 172 families, even though the relationship contract has ended, to kind of keep our ear to the ground as to where those families going to end up. And what I'm thinking of right up, it's the fact that inside of the West Tampa area, we had Presbyterian Village. And those families evaporated and left. On the next back burner is Oakhurst. Property has been sold. Another low-income structure. And I know the Housing Authority brags, I'm not saying it in a kind of like real negative way, but kind of negative, that in their replacement of units, it's not going to replace everything that we need. And of course, the Housing Authority should not be burdened to take care of and they can't tote the whole wagon of producing housing. So just in that little one area where you got Oakhurst, Presbyterian, I'm thinking about this group of people, that's going to be an awfully lot of people that's being displaced, and where do they go?
Right.
Where do they go?
I just want to share with this board for a minute that we didn't just get here. So a lot of things has been happening over a long period of time. We saw many of our HUD programs and many of our housing programs, the funding part of it really go away. Our 202 programs went away. Just some of our tax credit programs went away over the years. We saw operating costs being cut down to nothing for our PHAs. We saw our community support programs being cut, our training programs being cut. And so all of these things are happening simultaneously over the last, let's say, 25 years. And then we kind of get to this place, And so during that period of time, we had a couple of things occur. We had home come online, and we also had our SHIP program come online. I want to say probably 30 years. And so, but with that, we've seen home being cut way back. We've seen SHIP being raided year after year after year. So it's a number of other things that's happened too. So it was a number of different programs that were in place that allowed for the development of affordable housing, and those are timing out. And many of those programs are no longer available. They simply no longer exist. And so that's why we're not seeing the replenishment of the affordable housing programs. But when you think about whether or not a community, because communities evolve too. So you look at communities over 40 years or whatever, they begin to evolve and they change. And whether a community would want to have the housing in perpetuity would want to have certain land use, like in perpetuity. And so those are all, and there's a cost to all of it. And so those are very, very difficult decisions and conversations that have to be had.
Well, and the saddest part about it, these are our working families. These are our nurses, our secretaries, our first responders. These are people that live in our community that will lose their places to live. And so it is incumbent on us to really work on this, and I know everybody is committed to it. But there's this perception that that's not the case, that these are people that just don't have, any resources at all, and they're not working. These are working families with children frequently that suddenly lose their community because they've now lost the ability to afford where they live when these units are lost. So making our case to our legislature, becomes even more important when we realize that we're getting to a timeline based on just how markets work, where we have a lot of our historically established affordable housing units reaching their maturation level to the point where they are able to go market rate, and then we lose that affordability factor for those families. So I think it is critical that we get creative and we advocate as much as we can, because the economic loss to our community and the social cost to our community is just too great to do nothing. So I appreciate your commitment. Elizabeth?
Yeah, so I agree that this is really crucial, because I think sometimes we talk about the new units coming online. I think it's great we're building them, but I worry sometimes that we're leaking more out the bottom than we're putting at the top. And it's not just about the affordability, but it's also about the condition of these places. If they've been built in the 1990s, my guess is they're not in great shape now. And so the issue is then encouraging owners to take advantage of programs that allow them to renovate while keeping rents low, because I think both of those pieces are important. It's not just keeping rents low, but making sure these places are habitable. Also, just want to throw something out. This conversation made me remember I read something last week, not endorsing this, but some of the members of City Council in Los Angeles are exploring the use of eminent domain to seize properties where the owners have reached the end of their financial commitment to affordability and are refusing to kind of re-up as affordable housing. So they want to see if the city can seize these properties so that they can run them as affordable housing. Not saying we should do it, not even saying they're going to be able to do it, but just pointing out that we're not the only community that's looking at these issues, and that some communities are really thinking outside the box.
That's an interesting concept. Given that we actually have legislation pending that is actually going to in an effort to, we had conversation about property rights, in efforts to restrict government's ability to enforce certain zonings that would compromise our ability to enforce affordability. We need to pay attention to that kind of legislation, because while it seems innocuous in some respects, it really does matter when we have certain areas that we want to focus to make sure that we don't necessarily create what I don't like the term, but I've heard it used, a poverty pocket, where you create poverty in various different areas. Obviously, we're not doing that, but what we do is affordability pockets to make sure that our working force has an opportunity to be successful in maintaining their ability to have access to work and schools and medical facilities and parks, and the things that a government invests in to increase and to maintain the quality of life of our citizens. So we do need to be cautious and look at that, but also where we can create an opportunity to preserve housing, I think that's going to be an important part.
I think the key is rent sustainability. We need to look at how the market is. You can't look at an elderly senior who's on disability and who's living in an apartment, and that senior only makes about $700 a month, but yet the year comes forth and now the rents just jump $250 on. Then the following year it jumps another $100. Well, the government hasn't given her any more money to keep up with her bills and keep up with that apartment. So I think we have to look at rent sustainability as a whole to say, how do we say, okay, we know you have private owners, you have such and such, but we can't look at every year you're jacking the rent up 20, 30%. So I think we have to look at rent sustainability as a whole to see how we can kind of corner that market to say, okay, yes, rent has to go to maintain, but maybe every 2 years you look at something like that versus every year we're jacking rents up and people can't stay, they've got to get out. And that's the problem I'm hearing every day is that I'm a senior citizen, I only make so much, but yet each year my rent has gone up and I can't live now. I can't pay for my medicine. So I think we have to look at rent sustainability.
Excellent. Mr. Powell?
Could you speak in the microphone, please?
Whenever these loans and grants, expire, do we have the ability, or has it ever been thought of, to have a part of the language where, the county has like the first right of refusal to purchase these properties and own them themselves, and until you maybe find a secondary operator who will continue to operate in the fashion that they were? Because I think that we're going to have a problem with just capitalism. I mean, people are going to want to, at some point, cash in and, profit, and that's just the nature of, money. It's amoral. It's just going to move to where it wants to go, and that's what business, tends to do. And so I don't know if there's any restrictions. I'm clearly new to the board, so I don't know if we have any restrictions on whether or not we can, own, property and either manage it ourselves or fee it out, or, or at least, make it as like a temporary situation. I'm sure we don't want to be in the property management business, and, but, at least figuring out a way to where we can have a little bit more control.
So the county comes in with very little money in terms of the total project cost. And so, for instance, if we got a $25 million project, sometimes we put a couple of $100,000 in there. Sometimes we put $1 million or $2 million in there. And we've put as high as $3 or $4 million in there. But in relation to the total project cost, I don't think we would be in a position in terms of just simply having the money to do it, to say we want first right of refusal and then purchase that property. It becomes a real money issue.
And a good example of that is what happened with what's the name of it? Friendship
Palms.
Friendship Palms. That property, we found out that they were considering selling the property, and we had a significant number of individuals with disability and other issues that particular property was providing homes. You got to have an owner that's willing to talk, because in that case we didn't. And while we attempted to try and have a conversation in order to see if there was a way of preserving that property for the residents that live there, it was not successful. And so, we do have to make sure that we have, a partner that's willing to work with us. Those partners that have made a commitment towards affordable housing and making sure it's available are our best source of having that conversation. And I encourage, our team does an excellent job of reaching out to those facilities and those owners. But it's a partnership deal. County's only put $10 million in there, and sometimes these properties, that'll be a third or half of the money that we have for one project. But if it saves a lot of projects, the county may find another way to do it. We do have sometimes monies that are set aside for economically important, projects, and I would consider affordable housing one of those opportunities. So while it may not necessarily create jobs specifically, as in terms of great volume of jobs, it allows for a larger number of people to maintain their jobs. So where we look at those opportunities to negotiate is very important. Michelle, I'm going to let you finish your report, and then we'll take some more questions. Okay.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you very much. Councilwoman Donahue.
It helps to have all these other questions asked at the same time, because if you heard what we were talking about that ammunition that we obviously need when we're talking to the folks in Tallahassee, because just as you said, and I can't imagine how many others are beginning to reach that end of, we have a crescendo building, most likely. And since the money has been cut back every year, this problem is just waiting to happen in larger numbers soon, I'm sure. So it would be nice to know, what are we facing? You know, like, how many do we think? Now, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but you can see the timeline of of these projects, and you know that there's probably a pretty good chance, considering what's happening in the market.
Yeah, we can give you a list of properties with the
say, look,
maturity
we've got
dates, you know.
800
have some.
units, 1,000 units
Right.
that we're at risk of losing if you take away our only ability to save these properties. And your answer, your thought is dead on. I mean, that's how we should be able to do it. Say, look, especially since you know you have some owners who, they bought it, they walked away, they're like, let some manager take care of it, and there's never been a faucet replaced or a carpet cleaned since. And it's a shame that is the case, but you can't stop that. You know, I mean, you would love to be able to get in front of them in the confessional and say, hey, you know what you're doing? That's not our job. But I really would like to know if you can give us an idea of, because we have got to point out that this is not a this year problem. This is coming, and it's going to get worse, so.
Exactly.
I've been spending a lot of time on this in the city of Plant City, meeting with a lot of different institutions that this is their world. They fund these projects and so forth. It's very enlightening when you see what their restrictions are and what profit margin they're allowed to make and what rents are. So, I went into it with this attitude, and I came out of it going, oh, now it's interesting when you see the other side of the fence and what they're facing, because, there's a lot of things we can want and need, but it's them putting up the majority of the money. And so, it might be a benefit to have one of these institutions come in and just explain, or maybe go through what they're dealing with, okay? Because if we know how they're trying to put together these deals, it might help us to be able to know what we, might be able to impact and help them make, because, there's a lot of money out there right now for these type projects. They're looking for land, they're looking for participation, they're looking for, and like what Ms. Howell said, they're not looking for you to put up a lot of money. They just got to meet the criteria for the state or the feds, they got to have X amount of participation from the county or the municipality. And so it might help us, and maybe everyone here knows all the rules. I didn't, okay? I learned a lot going through the process. So, maybe in a future meeting, maybe we could bring one of these organizations in, because once you know what they're looking for, I think it's easier for us to know what we can provide. And because it's a really amazing what a couple of $1 million can get you, a $30 million investment in your community and provide X amount of housing. We don't have to come up with $100 million or $50 million. We need to come up with $1 million or $2 million. Sometimes it's like you said, it's $300,000 or $400,000. When you realize that, you're like, well, we can do that, so I know I've learned a lot from it. I'd love to go through it again. So
Okay, so I hear two asks. One, and probably as quickly as possible, Michelle, because, session ends soon. So we want to make sure that we have the materials for those that are making the phone calls, say this week, but also well before end of session. Is a timeline, or at least a set of dates of those projects that you're monitoring that will provide us with a end date? And how many units would be lost when that occurs?
Doesn't have to be specific.
Yeah,
Just give
yeah, I
us
don't
a
need to know the
ballpark.
project name, I just need to know, I've got this project that's providing 172 units, and it expires in 2020, or 21, or 22. So that we have, and I had Senator Pizzo ask me for that data. He's like, how many units do you have, how many are you monitoring? How many are expiring, what do you see coming down, that you can facilitate? Because they want to know. It's like this matters to them, and they want to know, is this dire or not? And I happen to think it is, but we need to give them the proof. So if you could get that out to the committee, can you give me an idea of what your timeline could be? this afternoon. I love your staff. Oh,
Wow.
my God, they are so awesome.
Me too.
That's terrific. Thank you very, very much. And then secondarily, maybe in our next meeting, in lieu of a partner spotlight, that we could have someone come and talk about the capital stack, and that's what you're describing, the financing that it takes to make a deal work. That really helps this board understand where we might want to focus our efforts. But it's, how these deals have to be put together, where our greatest opportunity of leverage is available, and to make sure that we know who our financial partners need to be, whether they are the local ones or national ones or whatever, but where there is a need for a financial partner and how they fit that mix.
There's not a lack of money out there. There really isn't. It's, it's just finding like Clearwater's doing a very large project now, a piece of property they've owned for 30 years, and so that's now about to be affordable housing on Cleveland Street. And
I think our very own, I believe that, Sean, are you doing that project over in Clearwater? Trying to do. So, but yes, absolutely.
is it the one on Cleveland Street?
Come on up so you can come to the mic.
Sean Wilson, Blue Sky Communities. No, I mean, we have a site in Clearwater that's owned by the city, but it's not on Cleveland. It's on Franklin Street.
Okay.
The AT&T property is what I'm talking about.
Okay, all right. And, the county has done an inventory of land available for making this happen, too. We've got an RFP report here coming to kind of explain what resources we do have available. But we're looking for all of those opportunities. But I think it would be helpful to the whole board to say, hi, this is how these deals can occur. Well, here's opportunities, here's challenges, so that we can best know how these opportunities present themselves. Ms. Burton.
Just recently at the Tampa City Council, they had a group come and make a presentation regarding the, I'm gonna just say the state of affairs. It was a regional report showing comparable cities, incomes, population, where the Tampa Bay area ranked in housing and income and all of that. And I believe it started off good until you got to that but. And it was downhill in housing, transportation. So I don't know, maybe Orlando, Councilman Gould know the name of that group. I would love for them to come in and give us a presentation. And this too, I want to believe that advocacy works, and not in just going to Tallahassee, but it's a ton of money in this city, in this county. And I don't know how Director Howell, you as a commissioner, bring to the attention of the stakeholders, I'm talking about the people that's making all of this money, how do you bring to their attention some of these dire needs? Because it's not enough for me to say, it's just the will of the capitalists. Yeah, but the people got to have somewhere to lay their head. So I'm not looking to get a rental paying $3,000 a month, but based on people's wages. It got to be some kind of compassion on the local level. And I appreciate everything that the county is doing, but when people need to hear the dire need of this community in making sure that somebody gonna sweep the floors, somebody gonna clean the bathroom, and all those folks need some housing. So the advocacy on the local part in letting stakeholders know that in order for the train to continue to move and the capitalists keep on getting rich, we need somewhere to live.
I think that was USF's movement.
Right. Recently, there was the partnership actually sponsored the State of the Region report.
That's it.
And I brought to the BOCC, to the Board of County Commissioners this past Wednesday, an element of that really focused more on how transit is our crux point. But the whole report, to your reference, brought up, was done at the city council meeting, brought up by Rick Homans of the partnership, who also recognized that our two crux points for success going forward are affordable housing and transit. And so another reason why it's so critically important that we're successful and innovative and look for ways that we can make this happen, because it is now our, we're walking around with casts on both legs because we have not been able to address the needs of many of our working individuals given the average incomes in our community. And so I think that's something we also can bring to the table in terms of seeing what the impact is. I've asked for the data that discerned this report be harvested out for just Hillsborough County. Much of that report was for the whole MSA, the full metropolitan area. Our numbers are actually a little better than the whole MSA. Our numbers are a little different. So we've asked the researchers to actually harvest out just Hillsborough only so that we could have a better understanding of what our challenges are as it pertains to inside the county line. Not to exclude anybody else, and we'd have a lot of folks that that come to Hillsborough County to work. But to address the needs of those living here, we wanted to make sure that we took a look at that data when we're taking into consideration our policy. So I appreciate that. Actually, Councilman Goods and then Mark.
Go ahead.
Well, to Mr. Lott's point, I think when you talk to some of these developers, it's what kind of incentives that you can give to help them with these projects. I hear that all the time. Well, if I could get this, I can get that. I can do more affordable housing to offset this market rate that we're going on. So I think it was a good point to see what are these needs, because when I look at a lot of programs, we always have that little crack where everyone falls into because there's a certain guideline here, a guideline there. And we need to find out really what those guidelines are to kind of fill those kind of cracks. I think you can get over the hump that way. But you look at some of the rehab programs, you got to meet this criteria, that criteria, that criteria. I'm like, well, that doesn't help the leaky roof or the drywall from caving in the house. And then you've got all these different criterias, and then people fall through the cracks. So, I think you got to look at what I call outside money that does not have all these criteria linked to that. Not there's a federal dollars or state dollars that say you can't do this, you can't do that. And I think that's our big problem, is a lot of the criteria is really hurting us from helping people.
I want to point out a couple of things. Regarding the commitment of the new owner of that 172 units, it's my understanding that they have a child care facility on that property, and that is part of the deal. Joe, you can correct me if I'm wrong. It is maintained and it's free of charge. They pay no land rent, they pay no building rent. In fact, I negotiated within that major repairs such as air conditioning, those kind of things, would be done by the property owner for the daycare facility. Most of I believe the children who use the daycare facility, most of them live there, although not all of them, they've recommitted to keeping that facility going. So there was some give and take on that. As far as what Councilman Gouda said, it's affordable housing is a real problem for two reasons. Number one, some of these tax credit commitments that whatever government agency it is giving out are 50, 60, 70 years, and the brick and mortar just doesn't last that long. Mm-hmm. And so we've got to figure out a way to tie those credits so that there is a commitment to keep that brick and mortar standing and change those faucets and do those kinds of things. We in the affordable housing industry can't control the two principal costs that increase housing. That is insurance and real estate taxes. Those go up significantly. much more than the 2.3% or the 3.2% that those who get Social Security or the whatever the AMI is, the spread is getting worse and worse and worse. And so the insurance came up on that property before it went to market. And I went to the insurance company, which is a very wealthy insurance company, despite all their claims that the storms have done this and the storms have done that. And I said, this is an affordable housing community. What can you do, even if there's carve-outs of coverage, what can you do so that we can work with you and get that cost down? And they blank stared at me and said, take it or leave it. I mean, this is where the coverage is. And a lot of that relates to the slip and fall, the signs we all see along the highway where I'm not talking about people who sue for discriminatory reasons or people who sue because of real injuries, but I've got a stack of lawsuits on my desk. I actually, the back office wall is 12 feet, and it is filled with folders of people who have sued the owners I managed for because they were running through parking lots in flip-flops on a rainy day. And so there's some legislative action that needs to be taken all the way. This is a huge, huge problem. And, maybe if the tax credits get spread out, they're not front-loaded. They get so much per year, and it keeps the brick and mortar going. Those kinds of things, it really needs to be a very comprehensive plan. And I agree with the mayor. There's plenty of institutions out there that have money that want to invest in the communities that are making them money. But it's a matter of working through the agreements. The spread on those pockets that you're talking about is getting I get calls daily from residents saying, I can't afford to buy my medicine. It's medicine or rent. Now, as an individual, I do some things that a lot of other property managers don't do, like assist people personally with those kinds of things. But just the cost of housing is not keeping up with the income, and we've got to figure out a mechanism to get those to somehow match a little bit better, so that those pockets don't get smaller, and so folks do continue to have a safe and affordable place to call home.
Exactly. Okay, well, unfortunately, we can be here all day because it's not a small task. But I think we can have these conversations, and I think we can actually look for opportunities where we can find partners that can bring more to the table in ways that we understand how to make recommendations to our legislators and to our governing bodies to bring back opportunities. One of the conversations I had earlier in the week was about land trust. If we own the land, but the builder builds the property, that may help in mitigating some of the property tax challenges associated with these projects that allow them to be affordable a little longer. If we can find a financier that's willing to work with making something like that happen. So there are ways that we can do this, and I think moving forward, we're going to bring those to your not only knowledge, but also for your consideration to make recommendations to our various different legislative bodies. Mayor Lott.
I was saying that, I was trying to sit up here listening. Almost every question that everyone has here, almost every wish and desire we have here, believe it or not, there's financial institutions out there that meets those criteria, okay? But you have to, that local entity, whether it's the county or the city, has to step up and you have to take ownership, okay? One of the popular products out there, and the product I was talking about that Clearwater's using, okay, is where the financial institution, they put up the property, the financial institution, okay, funds the project, 100% except for the cost of the property. And then the property is owned by the municipality or the county, except that it's tied up for a 30-year note, okay, with the financial institution, and you have the ability to hire them to manage the project, or anybody else you want to manage the project. At the end of the 30 years, it's your property, so you don't have to go,
Eminent domain it.
eminent
yeah.
domain it, like on your bench or whatever. So it kind of answers almost everyone's questions there. So and these are projects that I haven't seen in the past, Director. I don't know if they've been there for all along, but I know they're there right now. It just, takes us, I think, finding the right locations that you get the financial institutions that want to invest in with the project.
And to your point, I think we can find great partners, whether they're in the development business or not. When a company tries to come here, last year I went up to the Smart Growth America conference in the Washington, D.C. area. So it was, and the very theme of this conference was, how to address affordable housing and the transit, and when areas are growing very quickly. They were the center of the conversation was how was Arlington in the Roslyn area, in the DC area, dealing with the impact of having win the Amazon contract. And how they had to get creative with the employer for making housing available for the people that were going to be working there. So we can facilitate those conversations, I'm sure. And when we have large corporations that are looking to come to Tampa Bay area and come specifically to Hillsborough County, how can they partner with us in addressing available housing? Irrespective of what our dollars can do versus what they're able to bring to the table, and where we can make, permitting easier, or various different ways to streamline the project that obviously reduces the cost over the long term, ways that we can help mitigate maybe some of the tax situations. Those are opportunities for us to be able to get creative when some of the old opportunities and the old funding mechanisms have dried up and disappeared on us. So I look forward to adding those to the agenda. If any of you have items that you'd like to submit to the agenda, in about 2 weeks, we'll start working on the next month. So please feel free to get back to my office or get to Cheryl's office to provide us with those ideas, and we'll see how we can get them scheduled and on the agenda moving forward.
Okay, I think that's it.
Any other items? I've got, let's see, fiscal division. Federal, do you want to do that? Are we good? We're good? Any future business items? I think we just covered most of them. Okay. Any other items? And if we have no other items, we can call this meeting adjourned.
Thank you, great meeting.
Thank you.